honeys, Oozora Akari is a very tricky character to understand, so I've dug up all of her experiences and motivations. This is a thorough deep dive containing spoilers for the entire original series, including the 10th anniversary film Starway to the Future. If that's okay with you, let's get started. Oozora Akari is a divisive character in the Aikatsu community. Opinions on her story and her personality vary widely, with many different justifications for those opinions. So let's all get on the same page, starting with the facts of what the series creators wanted her to be. Ryuichi Kimura, the original series director, states in the Aikatsu official guidebook Akari Generation that he was inspired by the character of Matsumoto Chiaki from the 80s drama Stewardess Monogatari. Chiaki is a high school graduate described as a clumsy and slow turtle who struggles through her flight attendant training school. Although she fails repeatedly, her unrelenting determination inspires her classmates and her instructor. Chiaki is played by rookie actress Hori Chiemi, who was discovered in the Hori Pro Talent Scout Caravan in 1981 and debuted as an idol in 1982 before starring in Stewardess Monogatari in 1983. Sounds familiar, right? According to Yoichi Kato, head of series composition in the same guidebook, one of the themes of the third season was making encounters positive. Regardless of whether they are seniors or juniors, they improve each other through good encounters. This sentiment is echoed by Hashimoto Kayako, a Bandai card and dress designer, in the Anime Aikatsu Movie Edition. Akari is the type who says, "Everyone lend me your strength." I wanted her to be a girl who is loved and helped by many people and grows up. This was something that came together when we were creating the character of Akari. So let's put it all together. The clumsy and slow beginning, the improvement through positive encounters, and the love and help from many people. It all combines in her official description in the Aikatsu official guidebook, Akari Generation. Akari's greatest strength is that she never gives up no matter what, and remains cheerful and positive. No matter how high the wall in front of her, she keeps a smile on her face and tackles it with all her might. Many people are inspired and encouraged by Akari's behavior. One of Akari's talents as an idol is her ability to give energy to those around her. If those intentions resonate with you, you probably agree with the staff and enjoyed Akari's journey. But if anything has rubbed you the wrong way so far, you aren't alone. As we dive into the details of Akari's story, I'm confident that no matter your opinion of Akari, you'll understand your own feelings a lot better once we see what's really going on inside her head. It's a lot deeper than you've been led to believe. Akari's parents are a geologist and housewife who love her very much. From the time that she's 3 years old, they start to notice that they have a very determined, creative little girl on their hands. She follows instructions carefully and seems to enjoy accomplishing big tasks. Even when they assume she'll give up after a setback, she sees her projects through to the end. Although her parents have become quite confident in Akari's capabilities, she still struggles when she starts going to school. She's terrified of leaving her parents and becomes more sensitive to failure. She'll be all smiles when she wears her mom's homemade Halloween costumes, but on the verge of a tantrum when she's stumped by math homework. Akari's parents continue to encourage her with gentle optimism through her first few years of elementary school. They know Akari is full of potential and that for whatever reason she's just lost her self-confidence. In order to help her overcome her new fear of failure, Akari's mom begins to document her experiences. Win or lose, her mom wants her to see that challenging experiences aren't something to be afraid of. So she always takes a picture and asks Akari to smile, hoping to cement those memories for later reflection. That's why, when Akari starts to finally show some of her old determination, her parents fully support her. She comes home from school one day and watches the idol Hoshimiya Ichigo harvest a Christmas tree for a friend. And after that, Akari lights right up with a brand new passion for idols. Akari is inspired by Ichigo because she relates to her. In her 4th grade mind, hiking up a snowy mountain and cutting down a giant spruce tree isn't that far removed from building a giant sandcastle. But it's been a few years, almost half of her lifetime in fact, since she actually felt able to accomplish those big projects she once loved. When she sees Ichigo succeed and then sees how happy Ichigo's effort has made someone, she finds new motivation to try to recover her determination. Thanks to Ichigo, Akari decides that her next big project should be an idol career. But rather than singing or dancing, what she's drawn to is the effect Ichigo has on people. Ichigo makes people smile, and Akari is captivated by that ability. She had always been encouraged by the warm smiles of her parents, but it turned out to be harder to earn the approval of classmates and teachers. The only explanation seemed to be that she was lacking in some way at school, and she became afraid of reaching out to others in case they noticed her flaws. But after she discovers Ichigo, Akari is reminded that it's possible for her effort to earn her that approval she felt she lacked. So she starts reaching out to others, testing her theory, and is amazed when it works. When she puts in effort, other people smile. Effort earns her acceptance. And what better way to continue making people smile than to become just like the ambassador of smiles, Ichigo herself. Akari studies Ichigo intensely through the end of 4th grade, and then through 5th and 6th grade as well. She attaches herself to every scrap of Ichigo media she can find, and devoutly watches all of her performances, including the Starlight Queen Cup match between Ichigo and the top idol, Kanzaki Mizuki. Ichigo loses, but the MC on stage still praises her for her ever-present smile. Ichigo explains, "I may be frustrated that I lost, but I'm still unbelievably happy right now. I've been supported by so many people that I'm overflowing with motivation." Akari is touched by her resilience and renews her vow to embody that same sentiment, to smile through frustration. Even when Ichigo leaves the country to travel in America, Akari diligently keeps up with American news coverage about her. She even keeps up with the activities of Ichigo's unit members since they are still locally active. So she knows exactly when Ichigo returns a year later, when Akari is in her 6th and final year of elementary school. With Ichigo back at her middle school, Starlight Academy, and middle school entrance exams looming on the horizon, Akari begins to seriously prepare to follow in Ichigo's footsteps. Unfortunately, learning to sing and dance along to Ichigo's performances is a more difficult challenge than she expected. She quickly realizes that an in-depth knowledge of her favorite idol isn't a replacement for actual idol training, and that she probably won't be getting to Starlight Academy anytime soon. But she has the support of her parents, and she decides to go ahead with the audition anyway. She might as well try. Akari does her best with the exam, interview, and performance rounds, and it's a huge blow to her self-esteem. Her inadequacy is obvious compared to the hundreds of other girls who have showed up prepared, experienced, and confident. When the results are posted, she bursts into tears. Of course she hadn't made it. But like with every other demoralizing event in her life, her mom is still there with her camera. "Akari, I'm taking your picture. You ready?" Just like all the other times, it reminds Akari to smile, to find whatever silver lining she can. She smiles for the camera, holds up a victory sign, and concludes, "This was a worthwhile experience." To Akari, her rejection from Starlight Academy is damning proof that she had been nowhere near the level of Ichigo. Where Ichigo smiles through frustration, Akari cries. Where Ichigo earns the smiles of those around her, Akari earns only indifference. As she prepares to face middle school, Akari wants to break free of her dependence on her parents. She knows that she's loved and that they'll always support her, but a part of her has always been afraid that she'd be lost without them. Because whenever Akari leaves home, she discovers that the world is not full of the encouraging smiles she'd been raised to expect. And if no one is encouraging her, that must mean that something is wrong with her. If she's honest with herself, Akari finds it very tempting to quit, and she hates herself for it. Every insecurity, every failure, it all compounds into a deep feeling of being unworthy of anyone's approval. Of course her parents encourage her, that's their job. But no one else does, and that's the real proof of how flawed she is. How freakish she is. So after she earns that final nail in the coffin in her Starlight Academy rejection, she decides that she doesn't want to be Akari anymore. She's going to replace as much of herself as possible with Hoshime Ichigo, idol career or not. And as luck would have it, she gets the opportunity to do just that when the Starlight Academy nationwide audition caravan is announced just after she starts her new middle school. Ichigo and her unit members will be personally scouting new students, and even those who have failed in the past can reapply. It's perfect. It's irresistible. The first step to becoming Hoshime Ichigo is to go meet her in person. Driven by how awful it feels to be herself, Akari resolves to do everything she can to pass this second audition. The idea of being judged on her poor singing and dancing skills by Ichigo does scare her, but Ichigo is a kind and welcoming person. If she's the judge, then Akari is much more likely to find an approving smile this time around. She's much more likely to actually become an idol. On the day of the audition caravan, Akari stands in line with hundreds of other girls, just like last time. She's entry number 25, so she's very early in the audition schedule. Compared to everyone else, it's a very short time to prepare. Luckily, there's no written exam to cram for, just the interview and performance sections. And there's no saving her performance skills, so it's all down to the interview. Overcome with anxiety, Akari can only focus on how everything comes down to Ichigo. Akari is so nervous that she misses her cue to walk onto the stage, and she ends up running out in a panic when she hears the confused call of the MC. She's so focused that she doesn't even hear the first question he asks her. She stares out into the crowd and locks eyes with Ichigo. "Hoshime Ichigo" is all she can say, and then her hero is speaking to her. "Is your name really Hoshime Ichigo?" she asks, and Akari panics when she realizes she'd been meant to introduce herself. The MC makes a joke to lighten the mood, and Akari does her best to refocus. She gives a proper introduction, but in her mind she's already failed. Ichigo isn't smiling. Akari decides that this is it. If she's already lost her last chance, then she might as well put it all out there. She frantically begins to explain how much she admires Ichigo and how her ultimate goal is to become Ichigo herself. And amazingly, Ichigo starts to smile. She wants to know more. So Akari keeps going, and remembers that she did prepare something that she thought would impress her idol. She pulls a photo out of her pocket, the one her mom had taken after her first Starlight Academy rejection. I may look a bit awkward, but it's a very important picture to me. I may have failed, but my failure allowed me to understand the extent of my abilities and taught me a lot about myself. It's the right thing to say. That much is clear by how happy Ichigo looks to hear it. Akari is a little embarrassed to reflect on her failure so publicly, but she has to take this moment to emulate her idol. But I just couldn't give up, and so I'm here again today. Ichigo looks even happier with that answer. Aoi, Ichigo's unit member and fellow judge, asks her to choose the best thing about Ichigo. Akari thinks for a moment. Her reply should be as honest as possible. When she searches her heart for what Ichigo means to her, she finds that Ichigo is a role model. Ichigo gives valuable lessons about what it looks like to succeed, what it looks like to be worthy of encouragement. When she harvested that Christmas tree, Ichigo showed Akari what she wanted to be. How she taught me to dream, Akari finally answers. I looked up to her, but fell so short, and yet Ichigo cast such a brilliant light on me that I couldn't give up my dream without a fight. That's what I believe to be the best thing about Ichigo. When she finishes speaking, all three judges are smiling. Thank you, your feelings shone through, Aoi praises, and Akari is overjoyed. It's already started to work. But the performance section is next, and Akari feels the need to warn them that her skills aren't up to par. To her surprise, Ichigo asks her a sudden question. Akari, are you happy right now? How could she not be? Yes, she answers, and Ichigo continues. Good! Being able to find what makes you happy is one of the greatest talents you can have. Believe in yourself and have fun. Ichigo's praise is like an injection of optimism. Akari forgets about failure as she heads backstage to choose her costume. She forgets her insecurities, her inadequacy, and how impossible this audition felt a few minutes ago. Instead, she can only think of Ichigo's smile and words of encouragement. What a rare and beautiful gift they were. Akari picks a pink costume, as close to Ichigo's own as she can find, and resolves to express her gratitude to Ichigo clearly. When she gets on stage, you can still see Ichigo's smile of encouragement in between the frowning faces of her unit members. But Akari makes a lot of mistakes in her performance, and when her turn is over, she has a lot of time to wait. A lot of time to remember that she's probably just failed after all. She's waiting on stage for the results, eyes closed tightly when she hears Ichigo's dreamlike call. Oozora Akari, you passed! Akari can't contain her shock, but Ichigo stands firmly in front of her, full of confidence, smile intact, approving of her. Now a full student of Starlight Academy, Akari's life begins to change rapidly. She's excited to be at the same school as her idol, obviously, but people also start to treat her much differently than they ever had before. At least people who weren't her parents. As far as Akari is concerned, it makes no sense at all that Ichigo chose her out of the hundreds of applicants she was competing against. But when she meets Orihime, the school's headmistress, she finds more encouragement. And when she meets Yu, her new roommate, she finds even more. Things only get crazier when Akari is instantly invited to perform in one of Ichigo's concerts. She agrees, of course, but it's a terrifying situation. All she can do when Ichigo arrives to practice with her is thank her. Just relax, Ichigo tells her. I'll be with you, so don't worry. Ichigo also compliments how much Akari looks like her and whisks her away for a full day of idol training. Akari has never done real idol training before. Her disbelief that Ichigo could possibly be serious about her stands in stark contrast to the advanced exercises Ichigo is effortlessly trying to lead her through. The gap between them is made abundantly clear to Akari. None of it feels possible. Still, Ichigo is right there, encouraging her, so Akari feels able to put her own doubts aside, to replace them with whatever Ichigo thinks of her. When they review their song lyrics, Akari proudly points out a line that she relates to. Let's aim to be stars. You're the star I want to be, Ichigo. Ichigo smiles and thanks her, so Akari confides in her. Nothing I ever try to do goes well. How can I be more like you? Ichigo doesn't have an answer, and Akari is still thinking about it when she goes to bed that night. The next day, she does her best to mentally prepare for the concert. She's greeted by Ichigo right before they're meant to go on stage and is confused when she's handed the lyrics to their song. Had something changed? Ichigo points out the line that Akari had mentioned the previous day. Let's aim to be stars. That's not about me. The star is you, Akari. Akari tries to understand and reads through more of the lyrics. Even though it may be small, it's my own light. Let's aim to be stars, original stars. Let's aim to be stars, original stars, Ichigo repeats. That's you. You're already an idol who can take the stage. The reason I saw an idol in you during your audition, Akari, was that you had a light I couldn't keep my eyes off of. The light of an idol. You were all over the place, but I knew that you were doing your best, and that's why I chose you. So Akari, do your best in your own way. Somehow, Ichigo managed to find the magic words to unlock Akari's confidence. It was the magic power of effort and the fairy tale reward of recognition for that effort. It was a dream come true. Even though she made no progress in her singing or dancing skills, Akari is proud to go on stage with Ichigo. I'm also a star, she thinks to herself. Even though it may be small, I have my very own light. The performance isn't perfect, but it proves Ichigo right. Akari can be an idol, and she can find the encouragement she'd longed for without her parents watching over her. When she returns to her dorm that night, Akari tries to internalize Ichigo's newest lesson. I used to want to be Ichigo, but now I understand that I need to cultivate my own light. To prove her dedication, Akari decides to remove her most obvious symbols of Ichigo fandom. Ichigo had complimented how similar their hairstyles were, so she cuts hers short. She takes her rice scoop, a cherished Ichigo symbol, off of its display stand and tucks it in a drawer. That ought to do it. The next day, Akari reports directly to Ichigo to show off her new look and tell her about her new resolution to follow Ichigo's instructions. She's even tied her hair ribbon in her own original way. She waits proudly for the encouragement to arrive. When it doesn't, she gets nervous. Maybe she'd done it wrong and made a fool of herself. She apologizes for being clumsy, and Ichigo finally steps in with the approval she'd been expecting. Phew, that was a close one. Over the next month, Akari finds that she's still struggling in her classes. She joined Starlight Academy late, so she missed a critical window to find her place socially too. Her saving grace is her roommate Yu, who is always very kind to her. When Headmistress Orihime suggests that Akari attend an intensive idol boot camp, Akari is able to talk about it with Yu. Akari agreed to the boot camp right away, but Yu's description of it as a crazy hard program with a demon sergeant scares her. Even so, Akari is still extremely disappointed with herself for yet again earning indifferent expressions from her teachers and classmates. The clock is ticking on the motivation Ichigo had gifted her, and she's determined to seize another chance to prove herself as worthy of recognition. On both the bus and then the boat to the boot camp, Akari is surrounded by other students, and even though she can relate to their loudly voiced anxiety, she still finds herself afraid to reach out to them. She's too afraid that her weaknesses are about to be exposed to risk any unnecessary vulnerability. Akari is singled out almost immediately when the training begins. She trips and falls and gets yelled at. She marches at the back of the pack. Her rhythm is off from everyone else. What little motivation she had left is shredded by the harsh voice of her instructor. I'm alone again, she panics, both in dancing and in singing. No matter how hard I try, I never get any better. I'm all alone. With all of her fears about her lack of independence confirmed, Akari collapses and cries. The instructor announces the end of warm-ups, and Akari is forced to stand at attention with everyone else. Their next assignment is a group project, the construction of their own literal stage. Akari has already given up. A bunch of middle schoolers completing a sound construction project on their own? It's an impossible challenge, and that must be the point, to break them down even further. When Akari looks around, everyone else seems to have given up as well. That's a first. Everyone usually seems so much better than her. But then the better people show up to bring all of the lost losers to a planning meeting. They ask Akari for her opinion on what shape the stage should be, and Akari doesn't really have one. But then someone interrupts and asks her if she is the Oozora Akari, and someone else interjects, "From the audition caravan." Everyone suddenly starts talking about her, and she can't really tell if they're complimenting her or making fun of her. But when everyone else agrees that they all struggle with stage fright and have never performed for an audience before, Akari finds a silver lining. Suddenly, their compliments feel a lot more genuine. As our only experienced member, please tell us what you think would be best, one of the girls requests, and Akari runs with a confidence boost. She recounts her first performance experience and settles on a circular shape for the stage. Everyone applauds her decision. The instructor approves of it too. Feeling much better, a little superior even, Akari boldly leads the construction project. She recognizes another Ichigo symbol and asks for felling trees. It's a chance to reenact her most cherished Ichigo memory, the Christmas tree harvest for a friend, and she seizes it. "Akari, have you ever used an axe before?" another girl worries, but Akari reassures her. "Nope, but I'll do my best. I want to make a stage for everyone." Actually using the axe is very difficult, and Akari is struggling in front of everyone when a familiar voice pipes up behind her. Ichigo has come to her rescue. Ichigo actually knows the instructor personally and has received training from him herself. Aikatsu bootcamp may be harsh, she explains, but it's a valuable experience where you can discover a new you. Akari locks in. I want to find a new me just like Hoshimiya once did. Ichigo leads the rest of the tree harvesting exercise, and Akari is in awe of how much happier everyone seems to be under her leadership. She finds a new piece of her desired identity, an idol who can make people smile as well as give courage to people who are hesitant or troubled. Freshly inspired, Akari resolves to work hard on behalf of those less fortunate than her, those who have never stood on a real stage before. At the end of the day, Akari gets to talk with Ichigo one-on-one. Ichigo points out that their group project was not much different than a usual day's work. Idols work with large teams of people every day, and Akari realizes that she's learned another valuable lesson. As long as she continued to be an idol, she'd never truly be alone. She'd always have team members and her fellow idols to rely on. So the next day, when her peers nominate her to be the first to perform on the stage they built together, Akari seizes yet another opportunity. She requests that Ichigo join her on stage. A part of her knows that it's a selfish request. I'm sorry, she tells Ichigo as they prepare to perform, but I want to stand on stage with you again more than anything else. Ichigo thanks her, and Akari is able to perform a special appeal alongside her. It's an advanced technique that most new idols struggle to pull off. So when she gets back to school, she tells the whole story to Yu with pride. Selfish or not, she has a big, shiny accomplishment and the acceptance of her classmates to show for her efforts. It's the fulfillment of her childhood dreams. The next few months go pretty well for Akari. She keeps up her training and manages to improve her stamina and coordination. She and Yu even win an audition to manage the top student, the Starlight Queen, for a day. It's steady progress that proves her worth as an idol. She hits a rough patch when Yu goes home for summer break though. She plans to go home as well, but her plans are interrupted by another special training camp, and this one is mandatory. Even though she performed that special appeal with Ichigo during her first boot camp, she hasn't performed one since then. And even worse, both Orihime and her teacher Johnny agree that her singing and dancing have a long way to go. Even though Akari isn't sure that she has what it takes to pull off a special appeal on her own, Orihime and Johnny did praise her unrelenting training, so she tries to anchor her confidence there. A call from her mom gives her an extra boost too. Akari runs into Ichigo and her friends as soon as she steps out for a jog, but she stops herself from approaching them this time. She'd hardly done anything worth praising since their last encounter, so she denies herself the satisfaction of talking to her idol. She'll have to prove herself first. Johnny's special appeal training camp goes well initially. There are 10 students participating, including Akari, and this time she keeps up with everyone just fine. Even though she's shaky on the fundamentals, she feels confident in her ability to improve alongside everyone else. And then she watches the first girl in line instantly perform her appeal and get dismissed from the training camp early. A group of girls near her chatter excitedly about it, and Akari gets distracted. Now reminded of how insecure and alone she feels, Akari fumbles her turn on the trampoline and Johnny critiques her performance harshly. She understands, of course, the direct feedback is meant to help her improve faster. But nothing changes the next day, and her anxiety only gets worse as one by one everyone is approved and dismissed early. Everyone except Akari. Akari keeps practicing after everyone has left. Surely she must not have put in enough effort if she's still struggling. But Johnny finds her and calls her over to take a break. He's delivering a watermelon and a note sent by her mom, and he wants to talk to her one-on-one. Although she's been cheered up by the encouraging interruption, she's caught off guard by Johnny's serious tone. Akari, both the headmistress and I know just how hard you're working. However, what matters isn't whether you try, it's whether you can or can't. This one thing can either be a 0 or a 1. It's the special appeal. It might take some time before you reach that level. However, those unable to use a special appeal cannot truly be considered idols. You must absolutely master it. This summer training and the time you put in will be your battleground. What Johnny means is that to be a true idol, to perform a special appeal, you need to be relaxed enough to express yourself openly. If you are distracted by insecurities, fears, or potential embarrassment, you won't be able to earnestly appeal to an audience. Those aren't issues that can be solved through effort alone, and they can disqualify someone as a performer. Akari's continued failure to perform a special appeal is a sign to Johnny that her own insecurities may be too deeply entrenched for her to pursue a competitive idol career. To Akari, the judgment is extremely demoralizing. She reflects on how pathetic she feels, noting that all of her seniors are in a much harsher world than she is, and apparently doing just fine. Thriving, even. All Akari can think to do is keep practicing. It's what Orihime and Johnny told her she was doing well, wasn't it? But not even that is working. Do I even still have that light of an idol inside me, she wonders. It becomes difficult for her to even get out of bed the next day. Akari keeps doing Johnny's exercises on her own, even though her limbs are sore and she doubts that she has any hope of passing her final test. She can't think of anything else to do, and she'll only hate herself more if she stops. Even her attempts to cheer herself up don't work, and she hangs on to the last shred of motivation she can glean from Ichigo's wishes for her. Even if it's small, I want to make my very own light shine so badly. She convinces herself to keep practicing, but it's no use. She heads back to her dorm with one wrist and one ankle taped up for pain relief and runs into Ichigo on the way. Shoot, she was supposed to have something to show her before they next talk. Instead, Ichigo just seems worried about her, and Akari hastily insists that she's doing great. Ichigo gives her the approving smile she'd wanted, but this time it doesn't feel so motivating. It feels exhausting. The next day is her last day to prepare, so even though she feels miserable, Akari clocks in for another day of training. The reality of Johnny's judgment starts to set in. There is nothing comfortable or cute about what she's doing. Defeated, she crawls off of the trampoline to cry. But before she can fully break down, Ichigo appears to rescue her again. This time, Ichigo doesn't seem so worried about her. She's smiling and welcoming and invites Akari to tell her anything. Akari's relief is so powerful that she bursts into tears and turns away, not wanting to reveal just how weak she is to the strongest person on the planet. "My own light. You told me that I have my very own light, even if it was small," she laments, and Ichigo stands firm. That's right. But Akari has lost faith in even that reassurance. Akari makes a case for her own inferiority. She's put in her full effort and gotten nothing. Even when everyone else had made their breakthrough, she can't find a way out. Johnny, a legendary trainer, warned her that she might not have what it takes. Even with the blessing of her hero, Akari still can't scrounge up enough talent to repay her. Ichigo changes the subject and brings her outside, presumably to talk about the weather instead. Akari does her best to keep up. "You know, even if there are no clouds, there are still stars," she says, and Akari follows her lead in looking up to the bright blue sky. Even in the daytime at the height of summer, the stars don't disappear. You just can't see them. You're the same, Akari. Through her exhaustion, her self-hatred, and her failure, Ichigo still believes in Akari. It's more than Akari could ever offer herself, and it moves her to tears. "Your hard work makes you shine even brighter. I can see just how brilliant you are." There are those magic words again, proof that the fairy tale life she dreamed of could still become reality. Akari hurries back to the trampoline, eager to repay Ichigo's faith in her with a miraculous result. Embarrassingly, she messes up her jump again and she cringes at herself. But Ichigo encourages her anyway. She says Akari has improved and she watches her practice with a smile for the rest of the evening. Even though Akari doesn't succeed by the time Ichigo leaves, she feels a lot better and thanks her earnestly for her support. The next day, she's completely revitalized. Akari goes into her final special appeal test with her faith in Ichigo renewed. Ichigo had always been supporting her, had always believed in her, and was confident that she'd improved. If that kind of miracle were possible, then it was entirely possible for her to pass this test. With her insecurities resolved, Akari pulls off the special appeal and Ichigo congratulates her afterwards. It's another shining achievement, a passing grade, and the approval of her idol. With their bond deepened, Akari becomes an even closer supporter of Ichigo during a giant competition she's participating in, the Twinkle Star Cup. Ichigo ends up winning, and Akari is blown away by her performance, so much so that she can hardly focus on anything else as her class prepares for their annual recital. Feeling guilty for neglecting her own work, Akari decides to punish herself by avoiding any reminder of Ichigo. She covers up the poster in her room, represses the urge to talk about her, and avoids running into her around school, which becomes difficult when Ichigo starts chasing after her on the day of the recital. There's no way Akari currently deserves the warmth she'll inevitably receive from talking with her, so she keeps running. Ichigo catches up to her anyway, and right away Akari receives a compliment on her daily training. Akari cracks immediately. "There's something wrong with me," she confesses. "Ever since I watched that concert, it feels like I've grown my own wings and I'm floating around. Every time I see you, it feels like I'll float away again." Akari apologizes for running away, but Ichigo only reacts with understanding. She says she felt the same way about her idol, Mizuki, and Akari perks up. "Same as me." Since they're on the same page for once, Akari asks Ichigo what she did about her feelings. But Ichigo only says that she came to Starlight Academy, which Akari has already done. "And Akari," Ichigo continues, "it was your own initiative to come here." That makes Akari pause. She hadn't given herself much credit in the story of how she ended up at Starlight. She'd wanted to become Ichigo, wanted to meet her, and had ultimately been chosen, plucked out of ordinary life to become more than what she was. But it was true that in order for those things to happen, she had at some point made a decision of her own. She'd chosen to apply to Starlight. She'd gone back a second time even. That had to count for something, especially if Ichigo said it mattered. Akari reflects on what that must mean for her future. She's proven herself to Ichigo multiple times over now, and she's gotten farther than she ever thought was possible. Maybe she was capable of reaching even higher, toward a goal she thought was reserved for idols like Ichigo and Kanzaki Mizuki. Maybe she could make it all the way to top idolhood. Akari prepares for her class recital with her confidence restored, and she's rewarded by the surprise appearance of Soleil, Ichigo's unit. They perform alongside her, and at the following school party, Akari can only bask in the glory of being the luckiest idol fan in the world. Life gets even better when a leaky roof lands Akari a brand new, drop-dead gorgeous roommate named Sumire. Akari is so enamored with her that she goes out of her way to befriend her as soon as possible. They become closer while competing for a spot as Ichigo's manager for a day, and Akari is proud when Sumire recognizes the brilliance of her idol. The two of them can surely chase after her together. Akari's encounter with another new friend, Hinaki, is much less comfortable for her. Hinaki is a child actor and a famous entertainer, but she's full of praise for Akari for some reason. Her friendliness is overwhelming, and Akari isn't sure what to think of it. Hinaki seems to genuinely like her, but it's hard for Akari to feel open around her when Hinaki is objectively so much better than her. Hinaki is persistent though, so Akari and Sumire end up befriending her too. And when Hinaki reveals that even she feels insecure in comparison to Akari's freshness, Akari feels more comfortable opening up to her. She even beats Hinaki in an audition. With these new friendships established and regular advice from Ichigo, Akari's fear of independence becomes practically obsolete. She doesn't need to worry about ending up alone and failing anymore because she has the constant support of her new friends. Support that encourages her to persevere through any obstacle. Sure, it sucks when she's rejected by a designer she wants to work with, but she can draw upon the faith that Ichigo and her friends have in her and boldly prove herself to him as well. And the more she accomplishes, the more of a feedback loop she establishes that keeps her going. She finishes a big shiny project, she inspires a smile in a new friend, she's praised for her effort, and she finds the motivation for her next big shiny project. From this point on, no matter what she struggles with, Akari has the answer within arm's reach. She and her friends add a new student and actress named Juri to their social circle and help her overcome her anxieties. They help Ichigo with another big concert, and Akari goes out of her way to make sure that Mizuki, Ichigo's idol, attends. She is surrounded by the approval of others, and yet she never quite feels good enough. After Ichigo surpasses Mizuki and becomes the official top idol, she tells Akari, "I want you to inherit my dream, the dream of an idol." And once Akari accepts the blessing, Ichigo gives her her instructions. "Come on up. Take as long as you need. Climb on up. I'll be waiting for you at the top." Akari promises to fulfill her wish and locks herself into an eternal race against her own self-doubt. Even though she's found a support system that can sustain her, Akari has no internal drive. She is indebted to Ichigo, and her idol career exists because of Ichigo. She may have enough self-worth to give herself the credit of those first 2 auditions she decided to enter, but she never proves herself worthy on her own merits. She never proves herself wrong. There is only Ichigo. There's only the pain of being inadequate, and the salvation of being chosen anyway. That dissonance is why when Akari brings Juri to her house for New Year's, she is embarrassed of her parents, her father in particular. Although the two of them had been close when Akari was younger, Akari finds her father's passion for geology unbearable. She shuts him down at every opportunity, and it's only Juri's genuine interest that forces her to tolerate him. Akari used to share her father's passion and commitment. They worked on all those big projects from her childhood together. Now, Akari is unnerved by her own passions. She masks her core motivation, seeking the approval of Ichigo under a veneer of composure, of dignity, of elegance. It takes a long time for Akari to accept herself enough to stop cringing at her father's equally undying passion for soil and rocks. One thing that helps Akari gain this self-acceptance is her new job. After being inspired by the variety of skills held by Ichigo and her unit members, Akari decides to find her own unique skill set. She rejects both singing and acting right away since she'll never be as good as her friends, and is advised by Ichigo to follow what sparks her interest and trust in her feelings. So the very next morning, she looks through audition postings and decides to try being a weather forecaster. Akari's interest in the position is a little shallow but innocent. She thinks it sounds fun and is always impressed by how cute the female forecasters on TV are. Just like idols, she thinks to herself on her way to meet one such forecaster as part of her preparation. I bet she looks even more beautiful in person. But when she meets the forecaster, she's shocked by how academic the position turns out to be. The forecaster, Ayaka, explains how intensive the research required for her role can be, and when Akari expresses her desire to bring good news of sunny skies to brighten the days of everyone watching, Ayaka gently corrects her. She points out that to farmers, a rainy day can be more comforting than a sunny one. I'm sure idols are the same way, she continues. To connect with people through the TV, they need to be aware of all the different viewers. It's a vital aspect of weather forecasting. Akari had never thought of that before. By the time she gets back to school, Akari has given up on actually passing the audition. She's clearly not qualified for such an advanced role, but Ichigo had told her to trust in her feelings when finding her own unique skill set, so she still plans to give it a try. In her interview, her resignation to failure allows her to relax. The only thing at stake is whether she learns anything from the experience or not. Akari uses what she learned from Ayaka to adjust her answers in the interview and hold on to her goal of earning smiles from her viewers. She admits that she still has a lot of studying to do and thanks the interview panel for their time. It seems like a miracle when she's later notified that she passed. Akari receives her very own weather forecasting segment, Oozora Weather, on the morning information program Good Morning Watch. It's another confirmation in a long string of experiences that proves her faith in Ichigo correct. Even though she was nowhere near as qualified as the other applicants, her effort shone through and earned her approval anyway, just like Ichigo had tried to tell her when she first started out. The segment is difficult for Akari to adjust to. She makes a lot of mistakes live on air and has to do most of her studying at night. She does have an aptitude for it though, similar to her father's own geology research, and thanks to the supportive attitudes of her fellow cast and crew members, she improves fairly quickly. Unlike the confusing experience of being praised by friends for things she's personally embarrassed by, Akari is able to develop some genuine pride in her forecasting. She may have been chosen without proper qualifications again, but it's different this time. She's good at research, she has good chemistry with her coworkers, and her show quickly becomes popular. When she's at work, Akari finds it harder to compare herself to others. She's the only weather forecast host in the studio. It's also harder to be afraid of failure. There are plenty of actual experienced adults on her team who are there to help her. And whenever she feels embarrassed on air, her cute and friendly giant otter co-host smoothly covers for her. It's a safe space away from the anxieties of her cutthroat idol career. Her idol career still gives her just as many problems as ever. She still feels inferior to many of her friends, and she's always lacking in some way in comparison to them. And every time she meets a new friend who insists that she's helped them in some way, Akari struggles to accept the praise. It feels unearned. She usually feels like she's failed to prove herself if she'd even been trying at all. And if she didn't put in enough effort, it made no sense for her to be rewarded. The one relationship that fits perfectly into Akari's worldview is her working relationship with the designer of her favorite brand, Dreamy Crown. Tsubasa Senna, the designer, is a college-age fashion prodigy, and Akari adores his work. From the time that they first met, Senna understood that Akari wasn't good enough. He rejected her. But through the power of her relentless effort, Senna had changed his mind and accepted her as being worthy of his dresses. Whenever Senna releases an exclusive new dress, Akari is motivated to work as hard as possible to earn his approval once again. Her success or failure is easy to understand, because since Senna is already reluctant to approve of her. If she succeeds, it can only be because she's worked hard enough to convince him. It's a perfect system. In addition to Akari's top idol goal, she picks up a few others as she's influenced by her seniors. Sakura, a third-year student and one of Ichigo's friends, becomes the Starlight Queen. Akari had competed in the Starlight Queen Cup as well, and she'd been eliminated in the first round. But when she finds out that Ichigo's unit, Soleil, are working on an ambitious project and towards an even more ambitious goal, Akari feels the need to be ambitious as well. Before Soleil depart for their national tour, Akari makes Ichigo another promise. I'm going to become the Starlight Queen. Ichigo's approving smile is all she needs to confirm that it's the right decision to aim for. The road to Starlight Queen is paved by a series of experiments. Akari and her friends become second-year students and each receive a first-year student to mentor. Soon afterwards, Starlight Academy begins a new unit recruitment drive to find new groups of students to promote to the public. Sumire pairs up with Akari's trainee Rin. Hinaki pairs up with Juri, and that leaves Akari to look out for Madoka, Sumire's trainee. Akari can't resist Madoka's cute appearance, which makes it easier to overlook the awkwardness she feels around her straightforward personality. It also turns out that Madoka is just as insecure about her idol skills as Akari is. Encouraging Madoka is easy. Akari is happy to pass on the lesson that as long as you train relentlessly to prove yourself, someone will appear to validate your effort. What she fails to realize, of course, is that the people around her are driven by a genuine belief in themselves rather than a desire to escape their own inferiority. Still, Madoka and Akari are able to bond and end up as unit partners under the name Skips. It's Madoka's idea, and Akari agrees because she enjoys Madoka's unique perspective. The two of them end up winning the Unit Cup, a new school competition, by audience vote, and it lends the two of them even more popularity. This win, combined with her widely viewed Oozora weather segment, earned Akari another democratic victory, a spot in the 8-member group Aikatsu 8. Out of all the idols in Japan, the public has voted for her to stand alongside Ichigo on stage, plus 6 other idols. Aikatsu 8 is a temporary group formed exclusively for a single summer-long national tour, but it's happening concurrently with another event created by Soleil, the Great Starlight School Festival. The Soleil members are inviting 3-member groups of Starlight Academy students to follow their example and compete for first place. Akari had been nervous about the Aikatsu 8 election. She'd been afraid of being separated from her friends, especially since that's what happened to Ichigo the previous year. But Ichigo had given her another personal lesson about how normal it was for friends to progress at different rates even within the same industry. And as long as there were multiple chances for others to shine, there was no reason to regret the result of your own effort. Akari had made it into Aikatsu 8 alongside Sumire, but Hinaki had been left behind. So when the Great Starlight School Festival is announced, Akari is excited to share the second chance to shine with Hinaki. They form the unit Luminous and start training together right away. They're challenged by the task of performing a unit appeal, the group version of a special appeal. Hinaki and Sumire both begin to doubt that they're making any progress, and Akari is proud to take on the role of her idol this time around. What I can tell, the one thing I know for sure is that right now you two are shining. She repeats the lesson she once learned from Ichigo, and her friends regain their motivation. Luminous train up until the last minute, and on the day of the competition, they successfully perform their unit appeal. They land in the top 5 groups, and then in second place. They've beaten Kanzaki Mizuki's own unit by a tiny margin. Even though this result feels like a dream, it still stings Akari. Luminous had set their sights on first place, but they lose to Soleil. After all of her hard work, after her unquestioning openness to Ichigo's philosophies, the proof of the gap between them was still staring her in the face. But by now she knew the answer, that the only way forward was to smile through the frustration. In order to continue growing through encounters with other idols, Luminous embark on a 3-month national tour of their own. Akari continues her weather segment remotely, and the tour is a big success. They meet several idols from all around Japan, and each of them turn into a long-term friend. They even recruit a couple of girls to Starlight Academy. At the end of their tour lies their final challenge, the return of the Starlight Queen Cup. The time has arrived for Akari to fulfill one of her promises to Ichigo. An event is held for the previous 3 Starlight Queens to perform and inspire hopeful students. Sakura's speech resonates with Akari the most. Back when I first entered Starlight Academy, I had not a thought of ever becoming a queen, she begins. And yet, here I stand today. At times, you may find yourself with a passing wish to become something else. A wish so quiet, it is easy to forget and give up on it. I spent my days determined not to lose sight of that wish. Somewhere along the way, I was able to become a new me. Now it is your turn. What kind of Starlight Queen do you wish to be? Hold that thought close to your heart. Akari's answer to Sakura's question is obvious. I believe that working hard as an idol can bring a smile to others' faces, so I want to make even more people smile. That's the kind of Starlight Queen I want to be. Akari has 2 months to prepare, so her nerves have time to set in early. She admits to Headmistress Orihime that she can't think of an idea for her performance, but she later gets some inspiration from Madoka. For her Starlight Queen performance, Madoka is working closely with her grandmother, who happens to be the top designer of a major fashion brand. It reminds Akari of something Senna had said about a year prior, that a designer and idol are a team. Back then, he'd said that if they both work hard, they'd be able to fly even higher. Akari decides to reach out to him right away. Senna turns out to be sick with a cold, and Akari becomes concerned about him. She intends to cook him a homemade meal and make sure that he's resting, but when she gets to his studio, he ends up having to help her with the cooking anyway. He's nice about it though, and Akari is happy when he opens up a little. And when Senna insists that they might as well talk about her Starlight Queen dress, Akari is glad for the opportunity to talk through her feelings. When he falls asleep midway through the conversation, she's just satisfied that he's finally resting. While she's preparing to leave, Senna's sketchbook catches her eye. It's full of drafts for her potential dress, and she's touched by his obvious investment in her. He looks more vulnerable than usual while he's asleep, and Akari finds that she admires that vulnerability. She can see her own deeply buried passion and weaknesses reflected in Senna's own drive to work to the point of exhaustion. She realizes then that she can trust him. No matter what he designs for her, it'll be perfect, because they share the same goal, the same tireless work ethic, and the same carefully hidden weaknesses. 1 month later, everyone had decided on their dress and song for the Starlight Queen Cup, except for Akari, who had rejected Senna's offer to talk more about her dress. She'd wanted to be surprised by his creation, but being behind in her progress makes her just a little nervous. She decides to visit Senna to get a peek at the dress, and remembers to bring him pre-made food this time. But when she gets there, Senna is clearly focused on his work and only seems to take a break to be polite and accommodating her. Embarrassed by her impatience, Akari only talks briefly with him and then apologizes for showing up unannounced as she leaves. He says that it was fine and promises that her dress will be ready soon, but while Akari believes in his abilities, she's not so convinced about her own. When Sumire calls her on her way home, Akari admits that she wonders whether there was anything else she could have done for him. Sumire seems confident that she must have been helpful somehow, so Akari tries to believe her. Since she's in the area, Akari stops at her parents' house to deliver a gift. Feeling more empathetic than usual toward her father, she dug up a package of soil from the lake near Senna's studio. It looked mildly interesting from a geology perspective, and she thought he might enjoy it. He's so excited about the gift that Akari actually enjoys talking about it with him. After they all eat dinner together, Akari's mom talks with her for a few minutes. Her mom comments on how Akari had been such a crybaby, but at some point had started to smile more often. Akari jokes that it was because of how often her mom would take pictures while she was crying, but her mom is sincere. You smiled of your own volition, and seeing you smile always put me at ease. Akari's mom tells her that she's always believed that Akari had potential to be an idol, that she'd always had the power to encourage others through her own smile. Your smile's brighter than you may think, she says. There are countless people you inspire every morning with your smile on Oozora weather. Akari thanks her mom for the encouragement before heading back to school and reflects on what she must have meant. If her mom was saying that other people were seeking her approving smile, just like she was seeking the approving smiles of others, then that might explain the random kindness she received from others since she started pursuing her idol dream. If her attempts to mimic Ichigo had led her to smile for cameras, then maybe the people on the other side of those cameras had felt encouraged by her. Maybe there were fewer differences between her own weak mindset and the weaknesses of others than she thought. At her next concert, Senna shows up to deliver her new dress. He'd raced to the concert hall as soon as he'd finished it. I felt it was missing something. Your visit yesterday helped me figure out what it was. It was a much happier feeling than what you get by looking up at the bright sky. Honestly, because you came yesterday, I could make this without any doubts. I think this dress is perfect for you. When Akari thanks Senna profusely for his effort, Senna lights up. Thanks. Now I can say with confidence that it's complete. One smile and I'm full of energy. There it is, proof of her new thesis statement. Even Senna could benefit from the encouraging power of a smile. She may not totally believe that it has to be her own, but having access to that kind of power is enough. The power to impact people exactly how she is now. No extra effort required. As the Starlight Queen Cup approaches, Akari is able to put her anxieties aside and focus on putting on a good show for her audience. If all they really need is someone to smile and encourage them, then Akari can do that. She's good enough for that. She'll be the final contestant to perform, the closing stage of the whole competition, and she's ready. The day before her turn arrives, her coworkers surprise her with a good luck message during her Oozora weather broadcast. When asked to give a statement on her aspirations, she says, "Being on Oozora weather has allowed me to grow leaps and bounds as an idol. I'll think about all of you who have supported me during my journey while I sing. And on the stage of the Starlight Queen Cup, I'll shine as brightly as the sunlight streaming down from the beautiful cloudless sky above us." The Starlight Queen Cup has so many competitors that it lasts 3 days, and by the final one, Akari's friends occupy the top 5 placements. She, Hineki, and Sumire will be the final performers. Hineki goes up and overtakes first place. Sumire is next, and Akari expects the same for her. She'd been the favorite to win the whole thing. But as Hineki and Akari watch from backstage, Sumire fails her special appeal and ruins her chances. She'd gone for an extra advanced technique, a special A-rank fever appeal, and it cost her everything. When Sumire returns backstage and Akari goes on standby, Akari is forced to come up with a response as she passes her best friend in the hallway. Her voice actress, Shimoji Shino, describes her feelings. Sumire's mistake was a real shock. Before heading on stage, Akari quickly shook Sumire's hand and wordlessly encouraged her. And as she goes on stage to deliver a legendary performance, achieving the exact appeal that Sumire had just failed, Shino continues. It's not that Akari didn't have the ability to surpass Sumire, but rather that the feeling of "I'll try my best for Sumire" was what drove that performance. I think that this power worked even stronger because Akari has always done Aikatsu for everyone's smile. In that moment, in that Starlight Queen Cup performance, Akari realizes that, like Ichigo had told her once, friends have the power to encourage each other through their work. True friends gain strength through watching their friends succeed. So, rather than being afraid of crushing Sumire further, Akari puts her trust in herself and her friendships. She decides to do whatever she can to show Sumire just how much she loves and supports her. She relaxes, puts on her brightest smile, and sings to her, hoping that Sumire will feel how much Akari recognizes, supports, and approves of Sumire's own hard work. And for that effort, Akari earns first place and is named the Starlight Queen. Akari is shocked at first, and her relief almost brings her to tears as she realizes that she's kept her promise to Ichigo. But feeling somehow stronger now, she's able to smile and thank the crowd for their support. In her victory ceremony, she's praised by Kanzaki Mizuki, Headmistress Orihime, and Sakura. But when Ichigo steps onto the stage to present her with her Starlight Tiara and give her a hug, it's Ichigo's 4 whispered words that move her to tears. "You made it, Akari." Akari's own victory speech expresses her wish to make others smile on and off the stage, to follow in Ichigo's footsteps. But it also expresses the truth that she's only recently started to accept. If, like her, I become able to ease someone's unpleasant feelings or bring them a smile, then that's all I could ask for. She still promises to keep working harder and harder, but it's a start. At the after party for the competition, Akari is surrounded by praise once again. It's still a little uncomfortable, a part of her still doubts that she's truly worthy of such a prestigious accomplishment, and she's distracted enough that Senna has to prompt her to congratulate him on achieving his own goal of designing for a high-ranking idol. At the end of the night, after a long interview about her Starlight Queen victory, Akari returns to a brand new dorm, the enormous private home reserved just for her. On the table is a bouquet of flowers and a note from Sakura, who has just moved out. Akari will be invited to all future Starlight Queen gatherings. The note also leads Akari on a scavenger hunt, at the end of which she finds Hinaki and Sumire. They've moved a few of her things over for her and stay up late to talk over the competition. "When I failed my fever appeal, it really shook me," Sumire admits. "But seeing you make it cheered me right up. I could feel you moving steadily towards your future. You inspired me to start anew toward my own future." Hinaki agrees. "Me too. You count everything that happens to you as a worthwhile experience." Akari is relieved to hear that she'd done the right thing after all, that her friends really did support her, and that she really did have some kind of power to encourage them. The 3 friends fall asleep in her new bed, and Akari wakes up bright and early the next morning for her weather segment. Her coworkers present her with a bouquet of flowers, and her co-star Oozora gets a tiara to celebrate. After the broadcast, she's even more honored by a personal invitation from Ichigo to a private victory party. She's taken to Ichigo's family-owned bento shop, where her hero makes her her very own meal. Photos are taken, even more extremely famous people show up, and Akari once again feels the momentum of a confidence boost. It's another prime opportunity to be bold. "I hope you don't find me greeting, asking after this wonderful party," she says to Ichigo on her way out. "Please hold a concert with me." Only this time, Akari's request is for Soleil to join her, Sumire, and Hinaki in a joint performance. Ichigo agrees, and after schedules are aligned, the concert is arranged. Akari would have been satisfied for it all to wrap up there. It's the best victory gift she could have asked for. But once the concert is over, a camera crew appears, and Akari is reminded that the next day is her birthday, April 1st. Ichigo says that she has an additional present to give her, but that Akari will have to prove herself as a rival before she receives it. And before she can really process what's going on, she's taken to the start line of a marathon race against Hoshime Ichigo, idol marathon runner extraordinaire. Regardless of how shocked she is by the sudden challenge, Akari is able to focus on Ichigo. This is everything she's literally trained for. Physically, mentally, emotionally, it's time to prove herself wrong. It's time to prove that she can overtake her idol on her own merits. No more crying because it's too hard, no more giving up as soon as she's fighting alone. Ichigo has no more approving smiles for her and no more encouragement. If Akari is going to fulfill her promise to join Ichigo at the top, she has to face the reality of whatever remains of her inferiority. She has to persevere even when her hero is fighting against her. At least, that's what it feels like to be racing Ichigo to the top of a cliff, so when Akari does it, when she climbs over the edge first, she feels like she's actually made it. Like the two of them really are equals. Maybe she's not the top idol, maybe Ichigo will outrank her forever, but Akari has found a way to silence her inner critic. She's found a way to believe in herself for the first time. So when Ichigo says that she hasn't actually picked out a present yet and lets Akari choose it herself, Akari feels emboldened to ask that the two of them form their very own unit. It takes 6 months of preparation, but Akari and Ichigo make their debut as Cosmos that October. They're scheduled to put on a national tour, and it's a dream come true. Ichigo even reassures her that it's the greatest gift that she could have asked for as well. Their tour together lasts until the following spring, then Akari performs with Luminous for the Starlight Academy High School graduation concert. Ichigo's graduation concert. Akari is able to give her own speech to the graduating class, and in it she finds inspiration for her own future. When I and all of us first entered Starlight Academy, thoughts of one day losing you never entered our minds. If not for Hoshimiya, I wouldn't be standing here today. Hoshimiya shone brighter than anyone in my eyes, and I spent every day thinking about Ichigo. She was my idol, and ever since I became an idol myself, she's been pulling me forward. I'll never forget all the days she trained with me from morning to dusk. And like our seniors, we want to continue our journey as idols even after we graduate too. So with renewed ambition, we too will step into the future. After Ichigo graduates from Starlight Academy, Akari's focus returns to Luminous. Her high school years arrive and she keeps traveling with her friends. Even after their own graduation comes and goes, they stay together, bonded by the deep impacts they've made on each other, and by their eternal admiration for those like Soleil who came before them. In the Aikatsu official guidebook Akari Generation, head of series composition Yoichi Kato admits, "There was a time when I was writing the script while overlapping Akari, who was unable to do it, with my past self, so it was very motivating to see Akari successfully become Starlight Queen. I gained a lot of confidence from being able to depict the process of Akari becoming Starlight Queen." Most fans seem to feel the same way. But some echo director Kimura's feelings in the Animage Aikatsu movie edition that basically it's not good for Akari to be influenced too much by Ichigo, so I personally want her to move forward with her own ideas. There we find the key point of tension, because although Akari finds her answer, her self-esteem in the end, for some it feels too little too late. And the reason why quickly becomes intensely personal, just as personal as it feels for those who celebrate Akari's victory. For me, whose story is the near polar opposite of Akari's, I struggled to accept that she was spared from so much potential confrontation. Her flaws were overlooked by everyone around her until she herself could overlook them too. But I found space to appreciate her story when I acknowledged that Akari and her friends are presented more as children than the rest of the Aikatsu cast. Ichigo and Mizuki are written more as childish adults than actual middle schoolers. In reflecting on my own 13 and 14-year-old flaws, I recognized a familiar desire to hide myself away, a familiar desire to become someone else, and a familiar desire to be chosen and loved anyway. I think our reaction to Akari's weakness reveals a lot about how we feel about ourselves. Thank you so much for watching. I was pretty stumped on this deep dive and it gave me several migraines, but I'm extremely satisfied with how it's all come together. Make sure to tell me your thoughts about Akari in the comments below. We've already had a ton of great discussions about her. Also keep an eye out for more video updates in my community tab. Bye bye!
Enjoy your car!